بسم الله السلام عليكم ورحمة الله إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما ألا وإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله تعالى وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. My dear brothers and sisters, I welcome you back to our Tasfiyah wa Tarbiyah series, and today is the 18th of Jumadal awwal, 1442 years after the hijrah of our beloved Prophet ﷺ, which coincides with January 2nd, 2021. Today our topic would be something very important and also something that concerns many of us, which is the perfume that has alcohol, is this perfume halal for us to use or not? There's a big debate about this issue. This is a matter, first of all, this is a matter that was not existing in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. I.e., of course, there was Khamr, okay, the intoxicant beverages, but they did not use the Khamr to produce perfumes. So this was not something, an issue that was existed in the time of the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahabat al-Kiram radiyallahu ta'ala anhum wa ardahum. However, when we ask our ulama al-Kiram rahimallahu ta'ala, in our time, we have generally these fatwas that come from them. First, a group, they say it is not allowed, it's prohibited to use this kind of perfumes that has alcohol in it. Regardless it is a small amount or big amount, it's prohibited. Why? Because it has Khamr in it. And Khamr is najas. It is impure. This is the one opinion. The other opinion is, there are other scholars, and these are, we are now talking about the Sunni scholars, scholars of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. They say that this kind of perfumes is allowed to use. Regardless whether the amount is big or small, it is halal, because perfume, what is haram is the consumption. But to use it externally, this is not a problem. And also they don't believe that Khamr is not najas. Then there are those who also say that if the Khamr, alcohol in this perfume is a small amount, like 5%, 7%, it's very small amount, then it is okay. But if it is a big amount, then it is not okay. Then there are those who say, there are those who allow it and they don't see any prohibition in it, but they say it is best to stay away from it because there is a big ikhtilaf about this matter. Then there are others who put condition that this perfume has to be, if you use this perfume, it must be produced by the non-Muslims. If it is produced by the Muslims, then this perfume will be forbidden for the Muslims to buy and sell and also to use. So with all of these different awwal statements, what is correct? Because all of these are coming from our great scholars, those who we respect and we love and we learn from. For us to understand what is the exact maybe position that is correct, inshallah, based upon the kitab and the sunnah of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we must, as Allah Ta'ala says, وَإِن تَنَازَعْتُمْ فِي شَيْءٍ, if you differ about a matter, then go back to Allah and His Messenger. And this is how we see all of our ulama al-kiram rahimallahu ta'ala, they always refer back to the kitab and the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, this disagreement that is available in our time, this disagreement is there because of one very fundamental dispute or fundamental issue. That is the Khamr najas or not? Of course, there's other issues here. But one of the most important issue, first we need clarification. Is the Khamr najas or not? Is the intoxicant beverage impure or is it pure? There is a dispute amongst the ulama al-kiram rahimahullah ta'ala about this matter. Now, of course, Khamr was in the time of the Prophet sallallahu. Okay, so this dispute is an old dispute. Great majority of the ulama, they consider that Khamr is najas, impure, i.e., if you touch the Khamr, your hand is, or whatever you touch, it became impure, you have to wash it. Okay, and then there are other scholars, their number may be not as much, but they consider that no, Khamr is not najas, it is tahir, it is pure. So let's look into these evidences that the ulama they produce to prove their point. First of all, before we go into the discussion of the ulama al-kiram rahimahullah ta'ala, we have to understand that the najasa is of two types. Impurity is of two types. The first type is called hissiyya, or also they call it ayniyya, or also they call it dhatiyya, meaning a impurity that is physical. For example, urine and feces, our urine is najas hissiyya, i.e. it is physically impure. If the urine we touch, then the only way to pure it is basically to use a cleaning agent like water to remove the effect of the urine, and that's why we do istinja. And then the other type of impurity is ma'nawiyya, which means it is metaphoric. For example, somebody says worshipping idol is filthy, najas. He means it is ma'nawiyya, metaphoric. For example, if somebody goes and touches the statue that people worship, does he become physically impure? No. So that impurity that we are referring to, our ulama referred to when they say that somebody has a bad manner, this is filthy, najas, dirty. Not it is impure physical, but it is a metaphoric impurity. This is something that we have to understand, and this is something very clear in the Kitab and the Sunnah of the Prophet Sallallaahu Alaihi Wasallam. Also, the general rule is every matter, the general rule is all matter is physically tahir, unless there is an evidence. So for example, is the table tahir? Is the laptop tahir? Is the cell phone tahir? Is the hair tahir? Is the brick tahir? Everything is tahir. Now if somebody says, no, the table is not tahir, it is najas, so we tell them, bring the proof. For example, if somebody says, urine is najas, we have the proof in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, that urine and feces, our urine and feces, is for sure najas. There is no disagreement about this matter. But other than that, if somebody comes and says this is najas and that is najas, they have to bring the proof. This is something, the general rule we have to understand. Now let's look at the argument of the ulama who consider the Khamr to be najas. This is something very important for us to understand. If you don't understand it, we are going to be confused when we look at all of these answers. Oh, this perfume is halal. Oh, this perfume is haram. Oh, this is allowed if he this. Oh, this is allowed. Let's not go there. Let's first establish the chair upon which we want to sit. The understanding has to be crispy, clear, and good, inshallah. From the ulama, those who consider the Khamr to be najas is from the madhab of Abu Hanifa, Shafi, Malik, Ahmed, rahimahumullah ta'ala. And also this is the position of Imam Ibn Hazm, rahmatullahi alayhi. And some of the ulama even consider that Khamr is najas, there is ijma about it. There is consensus about this. Like for example, Imam Badruddin al-Aini, al-Hanafi, he claimed that there is ijma. Similarly, Ibn Muflih al-Hafidh Ibn Muflih al-Hanbali, one of the great scholars from the Hanabila madhab, he considered that there is a consensus about this matter, which is Khamr is najas. And in our time, the recent time, Shaykh Muhammad Amin al-Shanqiti rahimahullah ta'ala, in his book Adwa il-Bayan, the explanation of the Quran with the Quran, he considered that Khamr is najas. And same in our time, Sheikh Salih Al-Fawzan. And I remember I was listening to one of the class of Sheikh Wasiullah Abbas Hafidahullah Ta'ala, Sheikh Al-Fawzan Hafidahullah. Both of them, they consider the Khamr to be najas, and this is something a very famous and well established opinion. What is the proof? The proof is the ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you who believe, إنما الخمر والميسر والأنصاب والأزلام رجز من عمل الشيطان فاجتنبوه لعلكم تفلحون. O you who believe, intoxicant beverages, the translate is an alcoholic beverage, gambling, al-ansab, the statues, al-azlam, the arrows with which, the divination arrow with which they used to determine the luck and decision. All of these are abomination of shaitan's handiwork. Rijzum min amali shaitan. Rijz, the ulama, they said rijz, one of the meaning of rijz is najas. Najas, filth. Fajtanibu, stay away from it. Completely stay away. This is one of the severest form of tahrim. Stay away from it. And that's why when we look at Khamr, we know that Khamr, to deal with Khamr is to buy, to sell, to carry, to make, to serve. All of this is prohibited. When the Khamr was, prohibition was revealed, the Sahabat al-Kiram, they literally poured the, I'm sorry, they poured the Khamr, they poured the Khamr on the street of Makkah, and Medina, as we know from the hadith of the Prophet Sallallaahu alayhi wa alayhi wa sallam. So they said that because of this ayah, and they have other evidences they use, but they are not as strong. This is the most strongest position that they have to prove that Khamr is najas. Then we have the other ulama, those who consider that Khamr is not najas. And their argument is because Khamr was allowed to be drink, meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed the Sahabat al-Kiram to drink Khamr at certain point, until certain point where he prohibited them. So we know that if something is allowed to be consumed, this is for sure tahir. There is no ikhtilaf about this matter. If something is halal to consume, this cannot be under any way, shape or form najas. So they said, okay, this Khamr was allowed for them to consume, so it is halal. So it was tahir. It is tahir. Now, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed this verse, O you who believe, إنما الخمر والميسر رجز من عمل الشيطان, this means that consuming alcohol is haram, but it does not mean that the Khamr itself became najas. Now they said that we are going to consider it najas if there is a proof, specific proof. Allah said, yes, not only I declare that Khamr is haram, but also it is najas. Then they say there is a clear indication like this, we are going to accept it. Why not? Allah has the right to say this is tahir today, and tomorrow He will say, I consider this as for you najas. Don't go near it. Then that's it, because He is the legislator. But there is nothing like this in the Kitab and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ to clearly prove that Khamr is najas. This is the position of many old scholars. For example, Dawood al-Zahiri, rahimahullah ta'ala, Rabi'atul Ra'i, and this is one of the teachers of Imam Malik ibn Anas, Layth ibn Sa'ad, this is one of the contemporary of Malik ibn Anas, one of the major scholars from Egypt, Misr. Al-Muzani, and this is the student of Ash-Shafi'i, rahimahullah ta'ala. In our time, recently, not in our time, recent past, Imam al-Shawkani, the great Imam al-Shawkani, rahimahullah ta'ala. And in our time, Sheikh Muhammad Nasiruddin al-Albani, Sheikh Saleh ibn Uthaymeen, rahimahullah ta'ala, and other contemporary ulama of our time, they consider that al-Khamr is not najas, but actually it is tahir. Why? Because it was tahir before. The only thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibited is, of course, with in addition to selling, buying, is also the consumption. But the consumption, the prohibition of the consumption did not make the khamr haram. For example, when arguing about this, the position Imam Ibn Uthaymin, he mentions that, don't you see, that there are so many things which are haram to consume, but they are not najas. For example, poison. There is ijma about this. Poison is haram to consume, but it is not najas. It is haram to consume, but it is not najas. Apple, which is tahir. But let's say somebody stole the apple. This apple is haram for him to consume. But does it mean that it became now najas? So if he touches this apple now, he has to wash his hand? No. It is tahir, but it became haram. So they give this kind of examples which makes sense. And also Imam Ibn Uthaymin rahmatullahi alayhi, he says something very beautiful. He says, everything that is najas is haram to consume. But not everything that is haram to consume is najas. And there is so many examples like this and so on and so forth. So he said that if somebody says that majority of the ulama, there is no consensus. Now you understand from this that there is no consensus about this. Consensus means everybody agreed. There is no ikhtilaf about it. But as you can see, from the major scholars, their teachers, their students, some colleagues, we have these names, famous names. Okay? They considered that khamr is not najas in the old time and including our time and so on and so forth. Imam Ibn Uthaymin says, if somebody asks us, why did you go against the major opinion? He says something very beautiful. He says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He commanded us that when there is a disagreement, to go back to the Quran and the Sunnah. Not to decide what is truth and what is falsehood based upon the majority or minority. Qad sometimes majority is correct. And sometimes minority is correct. Okay? So we have to look at the evidences, and these arguments will self-explain the position of the Kitab and the Sunnah of the Prophet Sallallaahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Then also they said that another glaring example that Khamr is not najas is the hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari. Hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari on the authority of Anas ibn Malik radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Anas ibn Malik, he describes, and we talked about this in our recent Sirah class when we were talking about the merchants making millions in the episode 16 that we just uploaded this week. You can go and listen to it. But the gist of it is, Anas ibn Malik narrated that he was a server of the wine in the house of Abu Talha al-Ansari radiyallahu anhu. His stepfather, Abu Talha al-Ansari radiyallahu anhu. And there were Sahaba who were gathered in that house, very big names. We don't want to go there now. Very big names. They were there just to, enjoy each other's company, and they were serving Khamr, wine. At that time, somebody came out and announced that indeed the Khamr has been made prohibited. So Abu Talha said to Anas ibn Malik, go and see what he is saying. So he went out and he came and he said that indeed a caller is saying such and such. So Abu Talha said, oh Anas, go and take the pot and spill out the wine. So he said, فَخَرَجْتُ فَحَرَقْتُهَا فَجَرَتْ فِي سِكَكِ الْمَدِينَةِ. So he said, I went out and I spilled it and it flowed in the streets of Medina. So they said that if the Khamr is najas, then the Sahabat al-Kiram would not spill it into the street of Al-Madinah. And Imam al-Qurtubi in his tafsir, he said, on the authority of Sa'id ibn al-Haddad al-Qayrawani, or they call al-Qarawiyu, from Qayrawan, the famous city in Tunis now. This was a hub of scholars in the early days. And this great scholar, he died in the year 302 Hijri. So we are talking about old time, not recent time. He mentioned that Imam al-Qurtubi mentions on top of Layth ibn Sa'ad and others who considered that Khamr is tahir, alcoholic beverages are pure. He mentioned that Sa'id ibn al-Haddad al-Qarawiyu, he considered also the purity of the Khamr. And he used this hadith of Anas ibn Malik in Sahih al-Bukhari and he used the argument that if this was najas, then as-sahabat al-kiram would not do that. Then they also bring the hadith, another hadith in Sahih Muslim on the authority of Abdullah ibn Abbas, that a man came with a gift of a container of wine to the Prophet ﷺ. So the Prophet ﷺ told him, don't you know that wine has been made haram? So at the end of the hadith we know that that man, after he understood that neither can we sell or buy alcohol, the Khamr, and neither can we consume, he opened and he poured out the container, whatever was in the container, the wine. So the ulama, they also argue over here, the supporter of this position, they argue that if Khamr was something najas, the Prophet ﷺ would not allow him to just pour it like that in front of everybody, because it can touch the garments and it can soil the cloth and so on and so forth. So these are the arguments that the ulama they have to prove that Khamr is not najas. So when we look at both the arguments, what looks to be correct, although yes, the first group is the opinion of the majority, what looks to be correct is the argument of the second position. That is, Khamr is not najas. Khamr is tahir. Khamr is pure. Now, before we go into the argument or to see which opinion is correct or what is the most correct, maybe inshallah ta'ala, by the permission of Allah, if Allah allows us to see it, what is the most correct position with regards to using the perfumes that has alcohol. First of all, we need to understand what is Khamr. Khamr is something that intoxicates. For example, the Prophet ﷺ said, Kullu muskirin khamr. Kullu muskirin khamr. Everything that makes somebody muskir. Muskir means intoxicates. Then it is khamr. Whether it is liquid or solid or gaseous product. If it intoxicates, then this is khamr, and it is prohibited to consume, whether it is liquid or solid. Now most of the khamr is liquid. Okay. Then also we know that khamr, a Muslim is not allowed to transport, to buy, to sell, to serve the khamr. Has nothing to do with khamr. If he has a container at home of khamr, the only correct thing is to pour it out. He is not even allowed to store the khamr at home. We are not allowed to store khamr at home under any way, shape or form. We pour it out. Why? Because this is what the Sahabat al-Kiram they did. Allah's Messenger ﷺ did not allow them to keep the khamr and to benefit from some other way. Use it for some other purpose. And that's why we have the hadith in Sahih Muslim on the authority of Anas ibn Malik. He said, Anna Nabiya ﷺ su'ilani al-khamr. The Prophet ﷺ was asked about al-khamr. Tuttakhadhu khallan. Can they use the khamr to make vinegar? The Prophet ﷺ said, La. Now we do know that khamr, wine, if we allow it to be fermented with a certain kind of bacteria, that khamr becomes vinegar. In fact, we can create our own vinegar at home, but we are not allowed to. Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ forbid that. Now, if a vinegar comes to us, of course, now I'm going to the vinegar issue, I should not, but just a side note here. If the vinegar is there in the market to buy, yes, we can buy the vinegar, no problem. But a Muslim is not allowed to use the khamr to turn into a vinegar. It can be done by somebody else, a non-Muslim, whoever, and when they make the vinegar, we can purchase it from them, no problem. But we should not be involved under any way, shape or form in this kind of processing. So here is something very important, because this will help us to understand the fatwa that we heard in the beginning of the class, that a Muslim cannot use alcohol to make perfume. A Muslim cannot use alcohol to make perfume, like a Muslim cannot use alcohol to make vinegar or any other products. The only thing that we can do with a container of alcohol, if it is there at home and we figure it out that it is alcohol, the only correct thing is to just take it and pour it out. That's it. We get rid of it. As a Sahabat al-Kiram, they were commanded, and they showed it with the example. There are multiple examples we have from narrations from the time of As-Sahabat al-Kiram radiyallahu anhum. Now here is something also important for us to understand, that That's why you see when I'm talking about the Khamr, I'm always using the word Khamr, 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 Khamr. For very important reason that we have to remember the basic rule of Khamr. Because now we have the English translation of so many words. These words can be very confusing. Okay? For example, alcohol. For example, liquor. Okay? I don't want to go into details now because I will make a special class about all of these nomenclature. So it will be inshallah crystal clear to people what is liquor, what kind of liquor is allowed, what kind of liquor is prohibited. Huh? So now let's talk about the alcohol only here. The word alcohol. Alcohol is of several types. In the market you can find several types of alcohol. The consumable alcohol, one of the most common consumable alcohol is the ethyl alcohol, or it is also called the ethanol. This is the main product of the Khamr. Beer, wine, vodka, name it. All of these wines, the major product here is this ethyl alcohol or ethanol. This can be bought. This is known the consumable alcohol. So this is one type. Then there is some kind of products, they are called alcohol, but they are not Khamr. For example, sometimes when you buy something, you will see this term, yarhamukallah, sugar alcohol. Lot of people, they freak out. They say, oh, sugar alcohol. So remember we said what? The term can be confusing. Now when you go and search sugar alcohol, you see that sugar alcohol is not intoxicant. It is just called alcohol. Why? That's how they define it. So for us, we cannot just say haram. You need to know what this alcohol means. So for example, you go and you find in a product it says ethanol. Say, oh, ethanol. It's not alcohol. It's not wine. No, it is wine. So see, they can use so many terms, and unless you know what it is, you're going to be confused. Okay, so now you have sugar alcohol. I just give an example. Then there is something called denatured alcohol. Denatured alcohol, if I'm pronouncing it correct or not, I'm not sure, but that's how I understand to spell it, pronounce it. Denatured alcohol. Denatured alcohol is the ethanol, which is the haram, the Khamr, the haram. They add certain ingredients with it to make it bitter and not consumable. Not consumable, meaning people cannot drink it. Okay, they can still drink it, okay, and they can get intoxicated, but it's going to harm them. So some of them, they consider the denatured alcohol as poison, mathalan, but still it has Khamr in it. Okay, but here's the question now. It became poison now. Now should the rule of Khamr be applied to it or not? Big question mark here. I don't want to go there right now because it's going to make things complicated. Then there is something called isopropyl alcohol. All of this is, see, as you can see, alcohol. So what is isopropyl alcohol? Isopropyl alcohol is not consumable. We cannot consume it because it is poison. It's going to kill us. So why it is called alcohol? Because this is how they define it. So isopropyl alcohol is the one usually they use to wipe. You know the wipes that we have to cleanse the things, you know, when we prick, and this is isopropyl alcohol. That's not the Khamr. That's not Khamr. People think that's Khamr, unless they use the Khamr in the wipe. But the disinfectant wipes, or you know the disinfectant liquid that we buy, this is when we see the isopropyl alcohol, this a lot of people, they think it's Khamr. It is not Khamr. You go and check it, you will see it is a poison. It's not a Khamr. Khamr is something that we can consume and we can get intoxicated. So like ethanol, like an example, ethanol or the ethyl alcohol. Okay. Now this is in just short here. I just wanted to mention the word alcohol here because it's going to come when we understand. Now what kind of alcohol is used in the perfume? Here is something that we have to investigate. Okay, as we now can see that we cannot just say it has alcohol, so it is haram. We need to see what kind of alcohol. Most of the times, the perfumers, when we have this UD cologne and UD toilet and UD perfume and all these things, most of these perfumers, they use the ethyl alcohol. They use the ethyl alcohol, which means they use the Khamr. So they use the Khamr. And sometimes they call it, quote unquote, perfumers alcohol. Perfumers alcohol. Perfumers have many types, but the most common, as I told you, is the ethyl alcohol. So what do? They have the perfumers alcohol and they add fragrances in it. It could be synthetic, it could be natural, and they add and they make there. They have all sorts of distillation process and this and that, and the final product becomes, say, perfume. Sometimes they use also vodka, which is a Khamr, a type of Khamr, vodka. And sometimes they use denatured alcohol. And sometimes they might use some kind of alcohol which is a poison, a pure poison. So here is the different types of alcohol that are used. Now, when we come to these perfumes that has alcohol, if the final product that comes to our hand, is a perfume only, and it is not consumable under any shape or form, regardless how much ever percentage of alcohol there is, Khamr or not Khamr, this perfume is inshallah ta'ala tahir, pure. As long as you understand the second position to be the correct position. I'm going to again repeat. If the final product, after the perfumers they make whatever they want to make and they're selling, you go to the market and you find this product, it is a perfume, okay, and you check and this has 80% alcohol, okay, Khamr, 80% Khamr in it, 90% Khamr in it, 98% Khamr, doesn't matter. As long as this product is not consumable, then it is a perfume. If it is just a perfume, then inshallah ta'ala, regardless of how much percentage there is, small or big, this perfume is tahir, is pure, it's halal to use inshallah, and if somebody uses it and prays in it, inshallah his prayer is valid, no problem, with a condition. And the condition that this perfume is being made not by a Muslim or a Muslim company. This perfume is not made by a Muslim or a Muslim company. And this is something Shaykh Al-Albani rahmatullahi alayhi, mashallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless our ulama, he clarifies that. He says that if this kind of perfume is being produced in a Muslim country, then it is not allowed for you to buy it, or to sell it, or to use it. Why? Not because this perfume is haram itself, be that, but rather the procedure is haram. Because a Muslim, remember, that's why we clarified something. A Muslim cannot use alcohol or Khamr to make perfume. So if a Muslim company is purchasing ethanol or vodka, okay, and they're saying, oh no, we are not selling wine, we are going to turn this into perfumes, beneficial perfumes, and we'll sell it. If they make this kind of perfume, it's prohibited for us to buy, to sell, and also to support, because Allah Ta'ala says, "Ta'awanu 'alal birri wat taqwa, wa la ta'awanu 'alal ithmi wal 'udwan." Help each other in bir and taqwa, and do not help each other in ithm, in sin and transgression. Not allowed. An example, when I asked this to my teacher, he said that if you know a Muslim merchant who sells apple, so you go and buy from it, halal. But if you know that this Muslim, he cheats and he basically steals the apple from somebody's orchard, is it allowed for you to buy from him? No, it's not. Not because the apple is haram, not because the apple is halal, apple is tahir and halal, but the process with which this person is producing this product for us to buy, haram. And since he's a Muslim, he's not supposed to do that. We are not also supposed to knowingly help him. Now, if we do not know, that's something else. If we do not know, something else. So this is one thing. So now we understand that if this perfume is being produced by a non-Muslim company in a non-Muslim land, it comes to us packaged and it's a perfume. It's a perfume. It's not a consumable product. Then it is alhamdulillah rabbil alamin halal and tahir for us to use, inshallah ta'ala. This is provided if you, inshallah ta'ala, are convinced that Khamr is not najas. Now comes to the other type of perfume which are consumable. Am I using the word consumable? Consumable. The one which can be eaten. There are now companies, they produce perfume that you can use and also you can drink. Yes, there are companies like I checked it, it's called Smith and Sinclair. They produce, for example, they have three flavor: pear and vanilla. This is one flavor. Cherry blossom and mandarin. This is another flavor. Watermelon and citrus. So they come exactly in a fragrance bottle. It looks like a fragrance, exactly. But they say, lick your scent. Literally, they say, lick your scent. And this type of product is nothing but khamr, alcoholic beverage. So that's why, remember, we said that as long as the final product is a perfume, halal. But now, what they are basically doing is they are taking wine, khamr, and they're processing it with some kind of fragrances which are edible. It's absolutely safe. So it is like 2 in 1. Whenever you want, you can drink and you can enjoy. And whenever you want, you can also put it and say, I feel so good. Okay? So yes, it is a perfume. But since now it is not just a perfume, it is khamr. And it can be consumed and people are consuming it. This product, regardless whoever makes it, okay? Regardless whoever makes it, it's haram for the Muslims to buy, to sell, to own, and to use. And if somebody uses it, it is not because it is not haram. It is not haram because it is najas. No, it is not najas. It is pure because it's khamr. It's pure. We already are convinced about that. But it is haram because it is khamr. And when it is a khamr, we cannot own it, we cannot buy it, we cannot sell it, we cannot pour it, we cannot consume it in any way, shape or form. So somebody can say, oh well, I only use it as perfume. Can I not use it? We say, no, you cannot use it. Why? Because it is khamr. So now if somebody gives you a perfume like this, maybe they do not know, and you figure it out, you just open that perfume and you pour it out. As as-sahabat al-kiram they did. Why? Because this is not perfume, it is khamr. It is wine. It is the alcoholic beverage which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibited and did not allow us to use it under any way, shape or form. So I hope you understand the difference now. It's a little bit challenging, but I will summarize it now. First of all, we understood that the major issue, which is khamr najas or not? We understood that majority of the ulama, they believe that of the mutaqaddimun and mutaakhirun, maybe mutaakhirun in our time most likely maybe minority believes that it is najas. Majority, they believe inshallah ta'ala that it is pure. Anyway, so we have a group of scholars, let's put it like this. A group of scholars, they consider it is to be najas. A group of scholars who considers it to be pure. And we understood from the adillah and the arguments that the second position is the correct position. Okay. طيب. Now we moved on to define what is khamr and some of the rules of the khamr to understand that. And we understood that khamr is translated as alcohol and there is different types of alcohol. And we understood that the most common alcohol that is used to make those perfumes like eau de toilette and eau de cologne, which we always use, these are mainly, the main product of that is the ethanol or the khamr itself. Okay, so now we understood that khamr is tahir. So regardless how much ever quantity of khamr there is in this final product, it is tahir, it is pure, as long as it is a perfume only. But if it is consumable, then this becomes not only a perfume, but it is just a khamr. So we have the two distinction over here. And we also mentioned that if the final product is a perfume and pure perfume, regardless of how much ever a percentage of khamr therein is it is halal for us to own it, to use it, to buy it and sell it, provided this final product is made by a non-Muslim company, not by the Muslims or the Muslim company. And if it is so, then it is prohibited, not because it is najas, but because we are not supposed to support a Muslim when he is involved in a haram process in his business. We are not supposed to support this kind of business dealings. And then we talked about the last type, which is a perfume, which is nowadays is in the market, that is 2-in-1. It is a perfume, but it is also very much consumable, meaning people can drink it and get intoxicated. So now the ruling completely changes. It is now Khamr. So since it is Khamr, we cannot just say we will use it as perfume, because it is Khamr. So the rulings of Khamr is now applied on it, which means we cannot buy it, which means we cannot sell it, which means we cannot own it, which means we cannot use it, which means we have to pour it out, inshallah. That's what we have, inshallah ta'ala, with regards to this issue. I hope, inshallah ta'ala, this clarification would help us to see the truth as the truth and falsehood and the falsehood. And finally, I would say this, my brothers, as Sheikh Sulaiman Ruhaili Hafidahullah, he said something very beautiful. He said that he does not consider the Khamr to be najas, and he doesn't see any problem if somebody uses it to perfume himself. But he said maybe it's better for you to stay away from it if you have other options, inshallah ta'ala. So if somebody is confused about this matter and they're afraid of this matter, this is very well understood, then stay away from it. But I would suggest that before you call it haram or before you call it najas, do some research, inshallah ta'ala. And if you're convinced that it is najas, then we cannot do anything about it. But do some research and do some study before you jump into any conclusion, inshallah ta'ala. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.